The sound of shattering glass pierced the night, jolting 12-year-old Jack from his restless sleep. His heart raced, recognizing the all-too-familiar sound of his uncle's drunken rage. Trembling, he pulled his younger siblings close, whispering, "It's okay, I'll protect you." Jack's world was miles away from the glittering skyscrapers visible on the horizon. In the shadows of those towers of prosperity, his family's tiny apartment in the projects was a battleground. His mother, bedridden with illness, couldn't shield them from the storm that was his uncle, a man consumed by addiction and resentment. As the crashes grew louder, Jack made a decision. With a resolve far beyond his years, he gently shook his sister awake. "Lily, take Tommy and hide in the closet. Don't come out until I say it's safe." Lily's eyes widened with fear, but she nodded, clutching their toddler brother close as they slipped into the closet's shadows. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He crept toward the living room, where his uncle's silhouette loomed, swaying dangerously. "Where's the money, you little rat?" his uncle slurred, eyes bloodshot and wild. Jack stood his ground, voice steady despite his fear. "There isn't any, Uncle Rob. I gave it all to Mom for her medicine." The backhand came fast, sending Jack sprawling to the floor. The metallic taste of blood filled his mouth, but he refused to cry out. "Liar," Uncle Rob roared. "I know you're holding out on me. Where is it?" Jack's mind raced. He had been saving every penny he could from scavenging in wealthier neighborhoods, dreaming of a way out for his family. But that dream felt further away now than ever. "I swear, there's nothing left," Jack pleaded, backing away as his uncle lurched toward him. Suddenly, a small voice cut through the tension. "Leave him alone." Lily had emerged from her hiding place, her young face a mixture of terror and defiance. Uncle Rob's gaze snapped to the little girl, his eyes narrowing dangerously. In that moment, Jack saw a future he couldn't bear, his siblings suffering the same abuse he had. With a surge of adrenaline, Jack sprang to his feet. "Run, Lily. Take Tommy and go to Mrs. Martinez next door." As Lily scrambled to obey, Jack launched himself at his uncle, buying precious seconds for his siblings to escape. The struggle was brief but brutal. Jack felt a sharp pain as his uncle's fist connected with his ribs, but he didn't relent. "You ungrateful brat," Uncle Rob bellowed, his words slurred. "After all I've done for you." Jack let out a bitter laugh. "Done for us? You've done nothing but make our lives hell." With a final shove, Jack broke free and bolted for the door. The cool night air hit his face as he ran, his uncle's curses fading into the distance. He didn't stop until he reached Mrs. Martinez's apartment, where Lily and Tommy were already safe. As Mrs. Martinez fussed over his injuries, Jack's mind raced ahead. This night had changed everything. There was no going back, only forward, into an uncertain future. Looking at his siblings' frightened faces, Jack made a silent vow. He would find a way out of this life, no matter what it took. The city lights twinkled in the distance, holding the promise of a world he was determined to reach. Little did Jack know, fate was about to hand him an unexpected opportunity, one that would test his resilience, challenge his integrity, and change his life forever. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the bustling flea market as Jack weaved through the crowd, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. In his pocket, he clutched the ornate watch he'd found while dumpster diving in the wealthier part of town. It was his ticket out, a chance to change everything. "This is it, asterisk," he thought, approaching a stall manned by a gruff-looking dealer. No turning back now. Jack cleared his throat, trying to sound older than his 12 years. "Excuse me, sir, would you be interested in this watch?" The dealer's eyes narrowed as he examined the timepiece. "Where'd a kid like you get something like this?" "It was my grandfather's," Jack lied, the words catching in his throat. Before the dealer could respond, a booming voice rang out. "Thief, that's my watch." Jack spun around to see a portly man in an expensive suit, pointing an accusing finger at him. The crowd parted, eyes turning to the unfolding scene. I didn't steal it," Jack stammered, panic rising in his chest. "I found it, I swear." The man's face reddened with anger. "A likely story. Someone call the police." Murmurs rippled through the gathering onlookers. Jack felt the walls closing in, his dreams of escape crumbling before his eyes. "Wait," a commanding voice cut through the noise. A tall, distinguished-looking man in a sharp business suit stepped forward. "Let's not be hasty. Young man, where exactly did you find this watch?" Jack swallowed hard, knowing the truth was his only hope. In a dumpster behind Maple Avenue. "I didn't steal it, I swear." The newcomer's eyes softened. "I believe you, son. In fact, I think I know exactly how this watch ended up there." He turned to the angry man. "George, isn't this the watch your wife accidentally threw out last week during your argument?" George's face paled, his anger deflating. Well, yes, but..." The tall man chuckled, shaking his head. "Perhaps we should be thanking this young man for recovering it, rather than accusing him." Relief washed over Jack, but confusion followed close behind. "You know each other?" "Indeed," the man replied, extending his hand. "I'm Thomas Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries." "And you are?" "Jack," he replied, shaking the man's hand tentatively. "Jack Foster." Thomas studied Jack, his eyes thoughtful. "Tell me, Jack, what were you planning to do with the money from selling this watch?" Jack hesitated, then decided on honesty. "To help my family, sir. My mom's sick, and we don't have much." A moment of silence passed before Thomas spoke again. "How would you like a job instead? A real one, with the potential to change your life?" Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. "A job? But I'm just a kid." Thomas smiled warmly. "Sometimes, Jack, the most extraordinary potential comes in unexpected packages." "What do you say?" As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jack felt the weight of his past lifting. With a deep breath, he nodded, grasping the lifeline fate had thrown his way. "Yes, sir. I'd like that very much." The sleek elevator ascended smoothly, carrying Jack into a world he had only dreamed of. His reflection in the polished metal doors showed a boy out of place, worn sneakers, second-hand clothes, and wide eyes taking in every detail. As the doors slid open to the top floor of Blackwood Industries, Jack stepped into a realm of possibilities. Thomas Blackwood's office was a testament to success, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city Jack had only ever seen from below. Thomas gestured to a plush chair across from his desk. "Have a seat, Jack. I imagine this is all quite overwhelming." Jack nodded, perched at the edge of the chair. "Yes, sir. I've never been anywhere like this before." Thomas leaned forward, his eyes kind but probing. "Jack, I'm about to offer you an opportunity that could change your life. But first, I need to know, are you willing to work harder than you ever have before?" Jack's response was immediate and earnest. "Mr. Blackwood, I've been working hard my whole life. For my mom, for my siblings. I'm ready for whatever you've got." A smile spread across Thomas's face. "That's exactly what I hoped to hear. Here's my proposal. You'll join our summer youth entrepreneurship program. It's usually for high school students, but I believe you have what it takes." Jack's heart raced with excitement and fear. "But sir, I don't know anything about business or..." Thomas held up a hand. "You know more than you think. That watch? You saw value where others saw trash. That's the essence of entrepreneurship." As Thomas outlined the program, Jack's mind buzzed with possibilities. A stipend for his family, mentorship, and the chance to pitch a business idea at the end of summer. "There's one condition," Thomas added, his tone serious. "You must maintain absolute honesty and integrity throughout. No shortcuts, no lies. Can you promise me that?" Jack nodded solemnly. "I promise, Mr. Blackwood. I won't let you down." Just then, the office door swung open. A boy around Jack's age strode in, his designer clothes a stark contrast to Jack's. "Dad, are we still on for..." The boy stopped, eyeing Jack suspiciously. "Who's this?" Thomas stood. "Carter, this is Jack. He'll be joining the summer program." "Jack, this is my son, Carter." Carter's eyes narrowed. "The program for high schoolers? But he looks like he's from the streets." Jack felt his cheeks burn with shame, but Thomas's voice was sharp. "Carter, apologize at once." Carter muttered a half-hearted, "sorry," before storming out. Thomas sighed and turned back to Jack. "I apologize for my son's behavior. Please don't let it discourage you." Jack straightened, his resolve hardening. "It won't, sir. I'm used to people underestimating me. I'll prove I belong here." Thomas nodded approvingly. "I believe you will, Jack. Now, let's get you started. Your journey begins today." As Jack followed Thomas out of the office, he felt the weight of the moment. This was more than just an opportunity, it was a chance to rewrite his story. With each step, he left behind the boy from the projects and moved toward a future bright with promise. Little did he know, the greatest challenges and triumphs still lay ahead. The summer sun beat down on Blackwood Industries, but inside, the air was electric with excitement. 6 weeks into the program, Jack stood before a group of executives, his heart pounding but his voice steady as he presented his latest project. And that's how we can turn recycled materials into affordable, eco-friendly housing for low-income families, Jack concluded, his eyes bright with passion. The room erupted in applause. Thomas beamed with pride, while the other executives nodded approvingly. As the crowd dispersed, Thomas approached Jack. "Exceptional work, Jack. You've come a long way." Jack's smile was a mix of pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. I never imagined I could do something like this." As they walked out, Carter brushed past them, his face a mask of barely concealed contempt. "Nice job, street kid. Guess even a broken clock is right twice a day." Jack's jaw clenched, but he bit his tongue. Thomas shot his son a disapproving look before turning back to Jack. "Ignore him. You've earned your place here." Later that evening, Jack sat alone in the company's state-of-the-art computer lab, refining his project. The door creaked open, and he looked up to see Sarah, another program participant and the only one who had consistently been kind to him. "Hey, Jack, still working?" He nodded, gesturing to the screen. "Just making some final tweaks." "What about you?" Sarah perched on the desk beside him. "Actually, I came to find you. A few of us are going out to celebrate. Want to join?" Jack hesitated. "I should really finish this." Sarah smiled. "You're the top performer in the program. You deserve a break. Come on, it'll be fun." After a moment's thought, Jack agreed. As they left the building, laughing and talking, neither noticed Carter watching from the shadows, his eyes narrowed with jealousy. The next morning, Jack arrived early, eager to finalize his project before the big midterm presentation. But as he opened his computer, his blood ran cold. The file was corrupted. Months of work, gone. Panic rose in Jack's throat as he frantically tried to recover the data. That's how Thomas found him an hour later, eyes red and hands shaking. "Jack? What's wrong?" "My project, it's gone. Everything's gone." Thomas frowned. "Gone? How?" As they combed through the system, a disturbing pattern emerged. It wasn't a random glitch, someone had sabotaged Jack's work. "Who would do this?" Jack whispered, devastation etched on his face. Thomas's expression was grim. "I don't know, but we'll find out. In the meantime, you have a choice. Your presentation is in 3 hours. What are you going to do?" Jack stared at the blank screen, years of hardship flashing through his mind. He'd come too far to let this stop him now. With steely determination, Jack looked up at Thomas. "I'm going to start over. I'll deliver that presentation if I have to write it with my own blood." Thomas nodded, pride and concern in his eyes. "That's the spirit, Jack. But remember, integrity above all." As Thomas left, Jack turned back to the computer. The road ahead was daunting, but he was no stranger to adversity. With renewed resolve, he began typing, unaware that this challenge was only the beginning of a storm that would test him like never before. In the buzzing boardroom, Jack stood before the panel of executives, palms sweating but gaze steady. He had spent the last 3 hours reconstructing his presentation from memory, fueled by determination and countless cups of coffee. "Thank you for this opportunity," Jack began, his voice stronger than he felt. "I'm here to present my project on sustainable urban development." As Jack delved into his presentation, the executives leaned in, clearly impressed. But halfway through, Carter burst into the room, a stack of papers clutched in his hand. "Stop the presentation," Carter shouted, face flushed with what looked like righteous anger. "This is all a fraud." The room fell silent. Thomas stood, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "Carter, what's the meaning of this?" Carter waved the papers in the air. "I found proof. Jack stole his entire project from a graduate student at MIT. He's a fraud, just like I said." All eyes turned to Jack, who stood frozen in shock. That's not true," he stammered. Thomas frowned, examining the papers. "Jack, these documents seem to show a striking similarity between your work and this other project. How do you explain this?" Jack's mind raced. Then, it hit him. "Mr. Blackwood, may I see those papers?" Jack scanned the documents, his heart pounding. Then he spotted something. This isn't my handwriting. And these notes are from months ago, before I even joined the program." The room erupted in murmurs. Thomas raised a hand for silence. "Carter, where exactly did you find these?" he asked, voice sharp. Carter faltered. In the computer lab. Where Jack always works." Jack stepped forward, voice gaining strength. "Mr. Blackwood, someone deleted my project this morning. These were planted to frame me." Thomas's eyes narrowed as he looked between Jack and Carter. "Is this true, son?" Carter's confidence crumbled. I just wanted to prove he didn't belong here." Gasps echoed around the room. Thomas's face hardened with disappointment. "Carter, leave the room." As Carter slunk out, Thomas turned back to Jack. "Jack, I owe you an apology. Please, continue your presentation." Taking a deep breath, Jack resumed his pitch. As he spoke, he could see the admiration in the executive's eyes. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. Thomas approached, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Jack, you've shown not only brilliance today but resilience and integrity. You've demonstrated the true spirit of entrepreneurship." Jack's eyes welled with relief and pride. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood." As the executives congratulated Jack, Sarah approached him, smiling. "You really proved yourself today, Jack." Jack grinned, exhausted but elated. "Thanks, Sarah." Thomas cleared his throat. "Jack, we need to talk about your future here. After today's events, I think it's clear you're destined for great things." As Jack followed Thomas out of the boardroom, a mix of excitement and apprehension churned inside him. He'd overcome this challenge, but the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Still, for the first time, Jack truly believed in the future he could create. The sun was setting over the city skyline as Jack stood at the window of Thomas Blackwood's office, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past few months. Thomas entered quietly, closing the door behind him. "Jack, take a seat. We need to discuss what comes next," Thomas said, his tone serious but kind. Jack sat, tension creeping into his posture. "Mr. Blackwood, I can't thank you enough for believing in me, especially after everything that happened with Carter." Thomas nodded, his face thoughtful. "You've proven yourself time and again, Jack. But today's success, and what's ahead, requires a decision on my part. One that affects your future here." Jack's heart raced. Would he be sent away? Sent back to his old life? "I'm promoting you," Thomas continued. "You'll take the lead on the sustainable housing project. It's unprecedented for someone your age, but you've earned it." Jack's jaw dropped. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Thomas smiled. "Say you'll accept. But know this position comes with great responsibility. The eyes of this company, and soon, the world, will be on you." The weight of it sank in, excitement battling with doubt in Jack's mind. "Mr. Blackwood, what about my family? My mom, my siblings? I can't leave them behind." Thomas leaned forward, his voice softening. "Your loyalty to your family is one of the reasons I believe in you. We'll make sure they're cared for. But I need you focused on this project. It could change millions of lives." Jack nodded slowly, the magnitude of the opportunity dawning on him. As Jack left the office, his thoughts raced. He nearly collided with Carter in the hallway. "Watch it, charity case," Carter muttered, his voice sharp with lingering bitterness. Jack held his ground, feeling the tension rise. "Carter, I don't want to be your enemy. We could accomplish so much if we worked together." Carter scoffed. "Work with you? Never. You might have fooled my father, but you don't belong here, and I'll prove it." Before Jack could respond, Carter stormed off. Sarah approached, having overheard the exchange. "Don't let him get to you, Jack," she said softly. "You've earned your place here." Jack exhaled, trying to shake off the encounter. "Thanks, Sarah. I just wish he'd see there's room for both of us to succeed." Later that night, Jack returned to his family's apartment, now in a safer neighborhood thanks to Thomas's support. His mother greeted him with tears in her eyes as he shared the news of his promotion. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, pulling him into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you. But promise me one thing, you won't forget where you came from." Jack hugged her back, his throat tight with emotion. "I won't, Mom. Everything I do is for us, for families like ours, who deserve a better life." As Jack lay in bed that night, his mind raced with ideas for the project. But doubts crept in. Could he really balance his new responsibilities with his commitment to his family? His phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Congrats, Jack. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we change the world." Jack smiled, excitement and fear mixing in his chest. He knew the path ahead would be full of challenges, from proving himself in the corporate world to navigating the emotions of his past. But he was ready. The grand auditorium of Blackwood Industries buzzed with anticipation. Investors, media, and industry leaders filled the seats, eager to witness the unveiling of a project that promised to revolutionize urban housing. Behind the curtain, Jack stood, his heart pounding in his chest. "You've got this, Jack," Sarah whispered, giving his hand a quick squeeze. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. This was it, the culmination of months of hard work and sleepless nights. Thomas Blackwood took the stage to introduce him. As he spoke, Jack's thoughts flashed back to his journey, from scavenging in dumpsters to standing on the brink of changing millions of lives. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas announced, "I present to you the mind behind our groundbreaking sustainable housing initiative, Jack Foster." The crowd erupted in applause as Jack stepped onto the stage, his steps steady despite the nerves. "Thank you," Jack began, his voice clear and calm. "Today, we're not just unveiling a housing project. We're launching a movement to ensure that everyone, no matter where they come from, has access to safe, affordable, and sustainable homes." As Jack walked the audience through the details, eco-friendly materials, innovative designs, community-centered approaches, he could see investors nodding in approval and journalists scribbling notes. Even the skeptics seemed impressed. But just as Jack was about to conclude, a commotion broke out at the back of the hall. Carter stormed in, waving a folder above his head. "Stop this farce," Carter shouted, his voice sharp with anger. "I have proof that this entire project is built on stolen ideas." The room fell into stunned silence. Jack's stomach sank, but he stood his ground, refusing to let the accusation shake him. Thomas stepped forward, his face stern. "Carter, enough. We've already been through this." Carter wasn't finished. He marched to the front of the stage, glaring at Jack. "No, Dad. Everyone needs to know the truth about your golden boy." Jack's heart pounded as he watched Carter, the air thick with tension. "You feel threatened by me, Carter." "I get it," Jack said, his voice steady despite the rising emotions. "But instead of tearing me down, why not join me? Imagine what we could accomplish together." The audience held its breath. Jack wasn't fighting, he was offering Carter a way out. "This project isn't about me. It's about the families out there, struggling every day just to have a place to call home. Carter, you've had privileges I could only dream of. Why not use them to help create something bigger than both of us?" Carter froze, the folder slipping from his hand. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Thomas placed a hand on Carter's shoulder. "Son, Jack's right. There's room for both of you to succeed. Let's end this rivalry here." The room slowly relaxed as the tension lifted. Jack turned back to the audience. "What you've seen today is just the beginning. With your support, we can transform cities, lift communities, and create a sustainable future for everyone." The applause that followed was deafening. As investors rushed forward, pledging their support, Jack caught sight of his family in the crowd, his mother's eyes wet with tears of pride, and Lily and Tommy beaming with joy. In that moment, Jack realized he had achieved something far greater than personal success. He had bridged two worlds, lifting others as he rose. As he stepped off the stage, into a sea of congratulations, Jack knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a revolution, one that would change countless lives and redefine what it meant to build a truly inclusive future. 1 year later, Jack stood atop the scaffolding of the first Blackwood Sustainable Community, surveying the bustling construction site. What had once been a derelict neighborhood was now brimming with life and hope. "Jack, the first families are here," Sarah called from below. Jack climbed down, straightening his hard hat. A group of wide-eyed families waited, faces full of disbelief and hope. "Welcome to your new home," Jack said warmly. "I'm Jack Foster, and I was once in your shoes." A young boy, no older than Jack was when his journey began, stepped forward. "You lived in a place like where we came from?" Jack knelt down to the boy's level, smiling. "I did. And I promise you, this is just the beginning of your new life. As Jack led the families on a tour, pointing out the solar panels, community gardens, and skills training centers, he caught sight of a familiar figure. Carter Blackwood, clipboard in hand, was directing a team of volunteers. "Carter," Jack called out, waving him over. "Come meet our new residents." Carter jogged over, a genuine smile on his face. "Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here." Watching Carter interact with the families, Jack marveled at how much had changed. Their rivalry had transformed into a powerful partnership, combining Jack's vision with Carter's business savvy. Later that evening, as the sun set on the new community, Jack and Carter sat on a bench, overlooking the project. "You know," Carter said, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I was wrong about you, Jack." Jack chuckled. "And I'm glad you finally gave me a chance. We make a good team." Carter grinned. "We do. Dad was right, together, we're unstoppable." Their conversation was interrupted by Thomas Blackwood's arrival. "Gentlemen, I have some news." Both young men stood, sensing the importance of the moment. "The president has taken notice of our work," Thomas announced, his voice brimming with pride. "She wants to implement the project nationwide. Jack, they're requesting you lead the initiative." Jack's jaw dropped. "Me? But what about the company? And the work here?" Thomas smiled. "The company will continue with Carter at the helm. But this is your chance to change the world, Jack." As the implications settled in, Jack felt a rush of pride and fear. "Carter, what do you think?" Carter clapped him on the shoulder. "I think you'd be crazy not to take it. But don't forget about us when you're in Washington." They laughed, their voices carrying across the community, proof of what could be accomplished when people came together. That night, Jack returned to his old neighborhood. The streets that had once felt hopeless now buzzed with new energy. Children played outside, and neighbors chatted on clean, safe streets. His mother greeted him at their modest but much improved home. "I heard the news," she said, pulling him into a tight hug. "My son, changing the world." Jack hugged her back. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. Your strength got us here." As they sat together, looking out at the neighborhood Jack had transformed, his mother asked, "Are you ready for this next big step?" Jack took a deep breath, determination clear in his eyes. "I am. Every time I doubt myself, I'll remember where I came from, and all the people counting on me." The stars sparkled above, witnessing the continuation of a journey that was far from over. Jack Foster, the boy from the projects, was now poised to reshape the nation. No matter how far he went, though, he knew he would always carry with him the community that had shaped him. 5 years later, Jack Foster stood outside the White House, the DC skyline gleaming in the afternoon sun. His phone buzzed nonstop with congratulatory messages. The Sustainable Communities Act had just passed nationwide with bipartisan support. As he walked, a familiar voice called out, "Jack, wait up." Jack turned to see Sarah running toward him, her press badge bouncing around her neck. They embraced, both grinning from ear to ear. "We did it, Sarah," Jack said, pride swelling in his chest. "It's really happening." Sarah nodded, eyes sparkling. "From dumpster diving to changing national policy. Jack Foster, you're a living legend." Their celebration was interrupted by Jack's phone ringing, the special tone reserved for family emergencies. His heart skipped a beat. "Mom? What's wrong?" "Jack," his mother's voice trembled. "It's your uncle, he's in the hospital. It doesn't look good." The world tilted. His uncle, the man who had once been the source of so much pain, was now fighting for his life. "I'm on my way," Jack said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. Hours later, Jack stood outside the ICU of his hometown hospital. Through the window, he saw his uncle, once a towering, terrifying figure, now frail and tethered to machines. "Jack," Carter's voice interrupted his thoughts. Jack turned to see his friend and business partner approaching. "I came as soon as I heard." Jack nodded, grateful for the support. "I don't know what to feel, Carter. After everything." Carter rested a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You don't have to forgive him. But maybe this is a chance for closure." Taking a deep breath, Jack entered the room. His uncle's eyes fluttered open, weak but aware. "Jack?" Rob's voice was barely a whisper. I never thought I'd see you again." Jack sat beside the bed, his emotions a tangled mess. I'm here. I saw you on TV, Rob continued, each word a struggle. You've done well. I'm sorry. For everything. Tears welled in Jack's eyes, years of anger and pain mixing with unexpected compassion. I forgive you, he said softly, surprising even himself. A weak smile crossed Rob's face before his eyes closed again, the beeping of the monitors the only sound in the room. Outside, Jack found his mother waiting. They embraced silently, years of shared struggle and triumph flowing between them. You've grown into an incredible young man, she whispered. Jack pulled back, wiping his eyes. Mom, I've been thinking. With the new act passed, I want to bring the program back home. To where it all started. Her eyes widened. You mean? Jack nodded. It's time to transform our old neighborhood. To give every kid there the chances I had. As they walked out of the hospital together, the sun was setting in hues of hope. Jack's phone buzzed again, a message from the president requesting a meeting to discuss the next phase of the project. Jack looked at his mother, then back at the message. In that moment, he knew he wasn't just a policy advisor or a success story. He was a son, a friend, and a force for change. Ready to change the world again? His mother asked, smiling knowingly. Jack grinned, the fire of purpose burning bright in his eyes. Always, Mom. This is just the beginning. As they drove back toward their old neighborhood, Jack knew his journey had come full circle. From a boy escaping poverty to a young man with the power to help others do the same. The road ahead was long, but Jack was ready, carrying with him the lessons of his past and the dreams of a better future for all. What would you do if you were in Jack's shoes, faced with the opportunity to forgive someone who once hurt you deeply? Jack's journey from adversity to success is a powerful reminder that our past doesn't define our future. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found Jack's story inspiring, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories of triumph and transformation to light. Remember, every one of us has the power to change our lives and the world around us. Until next time, keep dreaming big and never stop believing in yourself.